So my screen is visible, right? Okay. All right. So let's begin with the class. So we have two topics for today's class. One is mental elements in law of torts, whether mental elements are relevant or not in fixing liability under law of torts. And another one that we have is damages which are provided, right? Or reliefs which are being given under law of torts. So these two topics we will be doing today. First we have is mental element in law of torts. Now in IPC, if you talk about criminal law, it clearly mentions that mental element is very much relevant. It's almost in all the cases it's relevant, but there can be some cases where like intention might not be as needed, even anyways, like person is punished. Okay, so mental element is considered as an essential element in case of criminal law, because we want to punish the person. Just because he was having a bad intention, he did something, it caused loss to another person, we are punishing that person. But that idea or that concept is entirely different in case of torts. So we need to understand if mental element is relevant or not in case of law of torts. Okay, so what is tortious liability in general? It is that law gave you some rights and that right was not respected by another person. Another person violated his duty that he was having, because when you are having a right, another person will have a corresponding duty so that you are able to enjoy your right. Now, when you were given a right, maybe being owner of a certain property, you were given the absolute right to enjoy that plot to the exclusion of others. And another person did not allow you to do so. That person entered your premises without your permission or without your consent. So there we can say tort has taken place, a wrong has taken place. And what wrong is it? Somebody entering your premises without your permission. What wrong is it? Just trespass, right? The person has committed trespass to property. He entered your property without your permission. Now, in some cases, right, the person has entered your property, whether it was intentional or not intentional, that might not be that much relevant. In case of crime, we have this concept, mens rea, actus rea, right? Both of them should be present. After that, it will constitute a crime. Like in case of theft, you must be knowing that if intention is not there, it's not even considered as theft. Even if I'm taking somebody else's movable property from their possession, it's not even considered as theft, simply because I was not having that mental element present. I was not having guilty intention to commit the crime or to cause wrongful loss to another person. It's that relevant in case of crime. But what about law of torts? In torts, whether mental element is needed or not, it will depend on situations. And on the basis of intention, we can broadly classify torts into two different groups. One being intentional tort, another one being unintentional tort. Okay, what is intentional? With intent you are doing, and another unintentional tort. So what is intentional tort? There can be some situations where if intention is not there, it does not make sense to consider it as a wrong. Okay, it does not make sense that we still consider that to be a wrong. Take for example, we have different torts like assault, battery, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress. In such cases, intention is very much needed. If intention is not there, unnecessarily asking the person to pay compensation, that will not make much sense. Take, for example, a person is there who might be a police officer. and he is having a gun with him, okay, and he is authorized to hold that gun also. One day might be he wanted to get something fixed in his casual where he was going outside with his gun. Another person was very scared to see it, okay, or might be someone is an authorized like he's having a license to hold a gun, and by seeing him another person was so scared that he cannot file a case for assault, right? He cannot say that I got scared because this person was carrying a gun and I thought that he may shoot me anytime, he may kill me anytime. That is not a valid situation where we are asking this person to pay compensation. Why? Because intention was not present, right? Are you aware that there are these people, I guess Sikh people, who would carry sort of a knife in their vest area? Have you seen that? Carrying knife. Yeah. Have you seen these people carrying these sort of kirpan, I guess it is called? Yeah, kirpan. You have seen, right? So if somebody is carrying it, right, it does not mean that person is trying to assault another, trying to put that person in fear of injury or something, okay? And if another person got scared, okay, like it's actually a situation that happened with me, that I was not aware that they carry these kirpans, okay? When I was in school, for the first time, I went to this golden temple, and I was not aware that they carry these kirpans with them all the time. So there was one Sikh lady who came to us, and she was talking nicely to all our family members and everyone. And suddenly I saw that she's carrying this knife. I was in school, I was not having any knowledge of this thing that they do. All right, and I got so scared. I thought might be she is not a good person, and I told my sister that she's carrying a knife, sort of thing. And then she was like, no, it's something that they anyways do it, right? So in that case, just because I was not aware of the situation and I got scared that maybe she can cause harm to anyone, that does not mean she will be held liable for assault. Why? Because it was not intentional, right? She was not doing anything to scare another person or something. It's just like a tradition, they follow it. And just because I was not aware of it, I got scared, that's not her problem, right? It's not justified that she would be asked to pay compensation. Okay, so there can be certain situations or certain different situations, right, wherein intention becomes relevant. If intention is not there in such a case, it will not even be considered as a tort. Okay, same may become with regard to assault, where I am just I may feel like, okay, this person is about to cause harm. Okay, there also it would intention becomes relevant. Okay, someone might be just stretching her hands or stuff like that, and another person standing right next to the person, he might be scared that, oh, is she trying to cause me harm? But in that case, she was not having any such intention, right? She was simply maybe stretching her hands. That means intention becomes very important. In every single case where a person just randomly had that thought that maybe this person can cause me harm, we simply cannot ask that person to pay compensation, right? Intention becomes very much needed over there. Same in case of battery, like you are touching another person, not just you are like about to hurt another, but you have touched the person or some physical touch is there. Okay, might be it's a crowded train or a crowded metro. Okay, when a person was trying to get inside it, he pushed another person, or might be by mistake that another person suffered some harm. There also intention becomes very much needed. Was it intentional, or was it so crowded that it just happened without any sort of intention? That intention becomes very much needed in such cases. Without intention, it does not make sense that we are simply making the person liable. Okay, same would apply in case of false imprisonment also. So what is false imprisonment? False imprisonment, are you aware? Soumya? False imprisonment is like by mistake, right? Wrongfully, a person is detained. Okay, might be a person is locked inside a room or something like that, but it was not intentionally done. It was like unintentional. It just happened. In such cases also, intention becomes very much needed. Like I remember we had one chapter in our English textbook in school. There one chapter was there when it was like the day when summer holidays will be announced, and all these students were asked to be present on that day. So everyone was like very happy. They went to the school, they attended the class where this holiday homeworks were also given to them, that you need to do these things and everything. Once classes were over, there was one student who went to the washroom. All right, and already classes were over, school got over, so all the other students, they were going to their respective buses or their houses. There was this one student who went inside the washroom, and in the meanwhile, right, the peon was also like locking the classrooms and everything, and after locking all the classrooms, he went to the washroom also, and without checking if somebody is inside or not, he simply locked it. Okay, that means by mistake he locked one student inside the washroom, and then he was shouting, there was no one around to release him or anything. All right, that means it was false imprisonment. That student was locked inside one very small washroom. But then, was it intentional or not? That becomes again relevant, because the person was not doing it intentionally. He was locking everything and he thought that might be all these students already left. There is no one. He did not check it. He simply locked it. Okay, so in such cases, intention becomes very much needed, whether something is done intentionally or unintentionally. Okay, or might be like inside the classroom, classes were over, everyone left. Maybe there was one very like a small student was there, he was sleeping in the bench, and the peon came, he just checked everywhere, he did not notice anyone, he simply locked the classroom. There also, he was not doing anything intentionally. There was false imprisonment, but then it was not intentional. Right? So intention becomes very important in a lot of different torts, where without presence of intention, it does not make sense to ask a person to pay for compensation. Okay, like pointing a gun at another person with an intention to threaten the person is assault and falls under intentional tort. If I'm doing it intentionally, then in that case it becomes tort. But maybe I was simply testing the gun inside the office or something. There was another person and he got scared. There it was not done intentionally, right? I was simply checking how the gun looks. In that case, it will not be considered that intention is present. Okay, so for most of the torts, intention is not relevant, but there are certain situations where we need to consider intention. Otherwise, it will not be justified to simply impose compensation on the person. Right? Simply making the person liable does not make sense in all the cases. What is unintentional tort now? In unintentional tort, defendant causes injury to the plaintiff, but without any malified intention. Whatever I have done, for that, because of that, another person has suffered loss. Loss is there, but I have not done it intentionally. I was not having any bad intention. But even in such a case, I can be held liable, or I may be held liable. Why? Because mental element may not be that much relevant. What is relevant here is another person's legal right was violated because of my act or omission, like we discussed in essential elements of torts as well. Some act or omission is there. Because of my act or omission, another person's legal right is affected. Legal right is being violated. And from there, he is getting some sort of remedies as well. So if these three things are present, intention might not be relevant. I can be anyways held liable to pay for the compensation. Like if you remember that Ashby versus White case, a person, a qualified voter was wrongfully restricted from giving his vote. But then whoever was the person there, the presiding officer, he was not having any bad intention as such. But still he was held liable to pay compensation. Why? Because legal right of a person is being affected just because of act of the presiding officer, right? So we are concerned with violating legal right of a person, loss suffered by a person. We are not that much concerned with whether it was done intentionally or not. Loss is being caused, that is enough. We can ask for compensation. And this is common in case of torts. In most of the torts or most of the wrongful acts, in fact, intention does not matter as much. Okay, so take, yeah.
What if a person knows that, for example, a man would say plant a pot of plant in his balcony, and he is aware of the fact that if a little wind blows, so the pot can fall down out from the balcony and could injure the person who is walking inside below the balcony area. And it happens. So will it be from an intentional or unintentional?
See, in such,
or it is a crime, or it's a crime under the torts, or in other way to go.
Okay, so see, if again that pot falls and another person suffers injury, now again it depends whether it was a plastic pot or it was of some other like heavy material. Okay, so depending on the loss, maybe the person got severely injured, he can file a criminal case also under IPC, right? Hurt, under hurt also he can file a case. Or in case of torts, if we take the example, we are anyways expected to take the like reasonable precaution whatever we are doing. If we are planting trees, doing gardening and stuff, we need to be a little careful, right? Again, there is one concept called occupier's liability. Okay, being the occupier, being the person having control over this balcony, right? It is expected from the owner that we take the reasonable steps. If we are keeping pots over there, we need to be a little careful to ensure it does not cause loss to anybody else walking there. If it causes, case of negligence can be filed that we were negligent in keeping those pots in the balcony. We should have taken proper care. All right. And plus, when you are residing inside in like a house or in an apartment, in your balcony, if you want to keep pots and everything, you are also having an obligation towards people who might be entering the apartment. Okay, so if anybody who is entering or going out, it falls on that person's head, the person suffers injury, case can be filed. All right, but it has to be like a normal situation. Like if you remember in one case of negligence, we discussed that it can be like act of God also. One neighbor was there whose wall collapsed and the neighbor's kid died. Because of it, he filed a case, and the person claimed that no, it was because of rainfall only that this wall collapsed. But court said that no, this rainfall was normal rainfall only. You only did not do the construction properly. Okay, so in those cases, if it was like a normal situation where just because of a little bit of wind, it just falls, the person, owner, will be held liable that you were negligent in keeping those pots. So the person will be held liable, he will be made to pay compensation. But it was because, if it was because of some act of God, might be like a very heavy earthquake or stuff like that, which was not expected, and even after keeping it properly, safely, it just happened. In such a case, the person can ask for the exception that no, it was because of act of God only. It was because of this severe earthquake that this entire building only got damaged or stuff like that. Okay, so there he can claim the exception, but otherwise the person will be held liable, because when we are keeping something within the house, we need to ensure it is safe for people around us. It's safe for the visitors, the licensees, or other people who are entering our property.
So basically, it will come under intentional tort. He was aware of the fact that the wind might come and the pot might fell to the property. Might also got injured to another.
It will be unintentional tort, because your intention is not relevant. Whether you kept the pot there just because it looked good, or you kept the pot so that that specific person would suffer injury, that does not matter. Why you kept the pot does not matter. What matters is this person suffered loss, and it was because of a normal situation only it happened. So that would fall under unintentional tort. Your intention there is not relevant. Whatever might be your intention, good or bad, does not matter. What matters is this person suffered loss. Okay, and you did not keep the pot properly. That is enough to make the person liable for negligence. So it would fall under unintentional tort, where intention of the person does not matter why he kept the pot there. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So unintentional basically means intention of parties is not relevant. What matters is that loss is caused to parties. And one, so this duty of care, which are reasonable and prudent men. Like, so duty of care we are having, like if we are keeping a pot, what a reasonable or prudent man would do. A reasonable or prudent man would see whether there are proper, maybe some grill or other stuff is there or not. If not, simply in an open space, they would not just keep a pot like that, right? A reasonable or a prudent man would not do. If someone is doing, that means they are being careless, person can be held liable. At the same time, there are certain welfare legislations. One very good example is Motor Vehicles Act 1988. Motor Vehicles Act is a welfare legislation. It talks about welfare of the people, of the public who are on the road, right? That those people should not suffer unnecessarily. And there, are you aware there is a concept called third-party insurance?
Yes.
You are aware, right? So third-party insurance, is it mandatory or is it optional? Buying third-party insurance.
It is optional.
Other insurances are optional, but third-party insurance is mandatory. Okay, whether you buy a life insurance or not, that's optional. You can decide whether you want to buy an insurance for your vehicle or not. That's optional. Okay, like loss to the vehicle, that's optional. But third-party insurance is mandatory. You need to buy it only. Without a third-party insurance, if someone is riding or driving a vehicle, that's a criminal offense. Okay, so it is mandatory. Now, in case of Motor Vehicles Act, you will see that if there is a road accident, okay, and because of that someone suffers maybe permanent disablement or a person dies, an amount of compensation is given. 25,000 in case of permanent disablement, 50,000 in case of death. Their intention, negligence, or other things does not matter. What matters is the person died or the person suffered permanent disablement. If those situations are present, person will have to make the compensation under third-party insurance. Okay, that means intention of the parties, who was being negligent, who was being careless, nothing matters. Why? Because main aim of this act itself is welfare of people. How can we give maximum benefit to the people? So if someone has suffered like extreme loss, you need to pay that minimum amount of compensation anyways. That is unintentional tort, where intention does not matter, but there can be some other situations where intention matters.
Okay. Ma'am, I have one more question.
Yeah.
What if a person is playing with a loaded gun in a public place and it leads, and by mistake or unintentionally fired, which further leads to the death of the person walking over the street? Well, in the case of minor and versus the case of major, what would be the consequence of each act?
Yeah. In case of minor, right? Again, the parents are having an obligation that they are keeping these things safely. Okay. In fact, there was, I guess, one case or an example that I came across, that a minor was given a gun, but then the father realized that, okay, might be it's risky. So what he did is he took the gun from the minor and he simply kept it in the storeroom. All right. And because storeroom was anyways accessible, minor simply took it from there and he killed another person. All right. So there the parents, right, they need to ensure that minor is like these things are kept safe. All right. These gifts should be kept safe and it should not be accessible to the minor. Okay. And anyways, if you are playing with a gun or something, a person dies, again, under IPC also we have provisions, right? Homicide, we have provisions. So there also the case can be filed. Rather than filing it under torts, person would file a case for homicide as well under IPC. If a person dies like just because he was playing or doing something with the gun and then suddenly a person is killed over there, or maybe he was taking the gun and fighting with a person dies over there, right? In those cases, that provision also we are having. And anyways, like minor over there, minor would be exempted, but how did the minor get the gun, right? There we can file a case against the father or the guardian under whose custody minor was, that they should have ensured that these things are not accessible to the minor. It should be kept safely away from the minor. So like that also, we can proceed against the parents. Okay.
In case of major?
In case of major, mostly people would file a case under homicide.
It won't come under torts.
Under torts, see again, like people usually would file under there, but yeah, you can file it that if you are keeping some guns or something, you should be a little careful, right? If you are not being careful, again, for negligence case can be filed, that you are simply like a loaded gun, you are simply casually holding it and then a person died over there. You can file a case, and again, depending on the loss suffered, compensation will be decided and amount will be accordingly paid. Because whether you are playing with it, you are carrying it, you are transporting it, we need to be a little careful in dealing with those stuff, right? So there again, negligence situation may come, that what a prudent man would have done, right? A prudent man, knowing that it's a loaded gun, they should have been a little careful. If the person was not careful, that means he's not doing what is expected out of him, right? So that person again becomes negligent over there, that what minimum expectation was there from him, he is not able to fulfill it. So he can be held liable for negligence over there, that while carrying it, while playing with it and stuff, he should have taken a little more of, like he should have been a little more careful over there. Okay, is it clear? If you remember the essentials of intention also there as well, we have seen, right, that you had a duty and that was like a expectation out of you and you failed to perform that duty. So you had a duty that whatever a reasonable or prudent man would have done, how they would have handled the situation, that is expected out of us. If we are not able to do it, then it's like we become liable under that, right? So that is like intentional and unintentional torts, that in some cases intention becomes relevant, but in most of the cases intention does not matter. What matters is there was act or omission, violation of legal right of parties, and some remedies are coming from there. Now, mental element in law of torts. What is mental element now? We have two things over there. One is motive and another one is intention. Okay, so motive means the main reason why we are doing it, and intention means like I intend to cause loss to another person. Okay, I intend to enter someone's property without their permission. I intend to open somebody else's gate and enter their property. That is intention. Intention is like what I want to do, short term. Right? Short term, what I want to do, I want to enter someone's property without their permission. But what is my motive? My motive is that I want to enter their property, make some noise, and disappear. And I want to repeat that thing until and unless those people are scared that might be there is a ghost and they would vacate the house. Right? That means my motive is that they should be scared that might be there is a ghost and they should vacate the house. But what is my intention? I want to enter their property without their permission. So when we talk about mental element, there are two things, intention and motive. Intention, you can say it's the short-term thing, what wrong or what wrongful act I want to do. Motive is what is my ultimate purpose. Like in case of crimes, you will see like movies or CID and all, if you see, if a crime is being committed, the investigating officer, they would try to analyze the situation, be like, okay, who would have got benefit or who would probably get a benefit if this person is killed? That means they try to analyze who may be having a motive to kill this person, right? What is the ultimate benefit that a person is getting because of this person's death? To fulfill that motive, maybe some intentional thing has happened, killing of a person, right? So in case of torts as well, we have these two things, motive as well as intention. Intention is short term, motive is long term, what is the reason for doing that wrong. And when we are deciding the compensation to be paid, whether or not compensation should be paid, in those cases, motive may not be relevant. What is relevant is intention. Okay, take for example, if there is a situation of assault, battery, false imprisonment, in such cases, right, what is relevant is what is the intention. Okay, there was one case for false imprisonment, if you remember, Bhim Singh MLA versus state of Jammu and Kashmir. Have you read that case? MLA was wrongfully detained in prison. He was not allowed to attend the assembly sessions. Do you remember that case? I think we discussed it in that legal damage part. Okay, what happened is there was an MLA, Bhim Singh from Jammu and Kashmir, and during this assembly sessions, right, he was about to go to the session and he was about to attend the session, but the opposition, they wrongfully planned everything with a police officer and he was wrongfully detained in the prison. He was not even produced before the magistrate on time. Okay, and he was detained until and unless this assembly got over. When this session got over, he was also released. That means it was a case of false imprisonment. Wrongfully, he was detained in the prison. Okay, wrongfully, he was detained in the prison. So there, in order to punish, okay, in order to punish the parties, what is relevant is intention is relevant, motive is not relevant. Okay, and what is intention? That they detain this person without any valid or lawful justification. They detain the MLA without any valid or lawful justification. That is enough to file a case for false imprisonment against the parties. but it might not be relevant that why was the person detained. Maybe he was detained so that he cannot attend the session, he cannot raise his voice, he cannot give his vote, but that would not be considered by court because intention is more important. Okay, and because of presence of that intention itself, we can decide whether it's a wrong or not, whether person is entitled to compensation or not. So motive might not be relevant in deciding whether a person will be liable or not, whether we need to ask him to pay compensation or not. Motive may not be necessary. Wrongful act does not become lawful just because motive was good. Okay. Hi, Arma.
Hi, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah, so we are discussing mental element. Okay, and there we are discussing relevance of motive and intention. So motive is very much needed or very much relevant, and just because your ultimate motive was some right thing, that does not make your act right. Okay, what matters is your intention. You did some wrongful act, that matters. Even though your ultimate motive was good, that does not matter. Okay, like a person may say that, okay, fine, I want to rob a bank, and why I want to do it, maybe I want to take that money and distribute it amongst poor people. But simply because my ultimate motive was right, that does not make the offense like a right thing, right? I will anyways be held liable for robbery because I'm doing a wrong thing. My intention is wrong there. I want to wrongfully rob a bank. Whatever might be my motive, how good does not matter, right? So motive is not that much relevant. Whatever is unlawful, that is anyways unlawful, and my intention is what matters, right? There can be certain situations where intention is necessary, some situations where intention might be not necessary, but then motive is not that much relevant. Okay, then we have two more concepts: malice in law, malice in fact. Malice is like the wrongful thing that we have, right? Malice in law signifies that wrongful act done intentionally without just cause or excuse. I have done something wrong and I don't have a proper justification or a valid reason that I can prove before court. Okay, I cannot justify my act before court. Like I cannot justify that it was maybe a statutory authority. Under statutory authority, I have done or something. Okay, I don't have any such justification to defend my wrongful act. That becomes malice in law. Malice in fact or evil malice means evil motive for wrongful act. When defendant does a wrongful act, because I have some ill will, I have some wrong intention with that I am doing it. That is malice in fact. That when I'm doing a wrongful act, maybe I'm entering someone's property, I have an ill will that these people should be scared that is it so easy that any random person can enter my property, and they will be very much scared. They cannot keep their doors open in the evening because they will be scared that next time anybody may enter our property. That is malice in fact, that I have some ill will in my mind while doing it. Malice in law as in before law, when a case is filed, I am not in a position to justify it. I cannot prove that it was because I had the authority to commit this wrong. It was a statutory authority. I cannot do that. Okay, so that is malice, or the presence of evil intention or ill will while committing a wrong or while doing an act. Is this part clear? Soumya, is it clear? We also have one case relating to this, Town Area Committee versus Prabhu Dayal. It's a case of 1975, wherein plaintiff made certain construction without complying with provisions of UP Municipalities Act. So usually when we are doing construction, even though it's our property, we need to take some permissions, approvals, and there will be certain guidelines that we need to follow, like how much of space should we be leaving in all the sides of the house and other stuff, right? We need to do some soil testing, this, that, so many formalities. And those will be decided by the concerned state's law, right? So in this case also, there was UP Municipalities Act, under which there were certain rules or regulations which were to be followed, and these provisions were not followed while doing this construction. The defendants demolished the construction. The plaintiff sued the defendant, contending that the demolition was illegal, as some of the officers of Town Area Committee were acting maliciously. Okay, that means if I am doing some wrongful act, some illegal construction, and the Town Planning Committee or the authorities, whoever are there, they decided to demolish my property only. But there were other illegal properties also. There were other illegal construction also. They simply decided to demolish only my property. Why? Because maybe they were having some enmity with me. Just because they simply targeted me, demolished my property, I cannot go against them. I cannot file a case that they were having like a illegal motive or something like that. They wanted to take revenge, so only they demolished my property. But in the same city, there are so many illegal constructions going on. That will not be justified. Why? Because whatever I have done, that was anyways illegal, and these authorities are having the right to having the statutory authority to demolish illegal constructions. So whatever might be their ultimate motive, whether they wanted to take revenge, they wanted to teach me a lesson whatsoever, does not matter, because they are the rightful authority having this right. They are being given this right, so they can take the action against me. Okay, it will not be much relevant over there. So this basically indicates that, again, intention becomes relevant. Intention may be considered by courts while deciding liability of parties, but motive may not be necessary. What was the ultimate motive? Whether it was good, whether it was bad, that does not matter. Whether my act was intentional or not, that may matter in some cases. In some cases, even that may not matter, because in case of torts, the main aim is that we want to provide compensation to parties. And why is compensation paid? Because just because of my wrongful act or omission, someone has suffered loss. Might be otherwise this person will have been in this position. Because of my wrongful act, he came down to this position. So there I have an obligation to pay him compensation, make this wrong good, and bring him to the same position where he would have otherwise been. Okay, and just because we don't want to punish the person for the wrong, but we simply want to undo or try to compensate and balance this out. That's why in case of torts, intention is not as much relevant as it is in case of crimes. Because in case of crime, we want to punish the person and we want to reform him, right? In India, the basic principles which we follow is reformative theory and deterrence. We want to set it as an example for other like-minded people. But in case of torts, that's not the situation. We want to simply repair the loss that the victim has suffered. So mental element might not be relevant, because whatever may be the intention, anyways, loss is suffered. So we need to make that loss good. We need to repair it by paying compensation. Okay, so this is about mental element, where we have some torts where mental element may be relevant, some torts where it might not be relevant, and we also have intention plus motive. That just because my ultimate motive was good, it does not make a wrongful act right. But in case of intention, that might be considered in few cases like assault, battery, mayhem, or in case of false imprisonment, situations like that, it may become relevant or necessary for parties to consider.